We are currently in the automotive section, and you can see there's some really cool, useful stuff here, like the 6-inch clip-on fan. It's 12 volts, so it'll plug right into your house battery system. Usually these things are like 0.08 amps. So if you have like a 25-35 amp hour battery, that's powerful enough to run the whole thing all night, which is what I have. So even though it seems like standard equipment, this fan is like a lifesaver. What I found for being in Florida is that the fan is all you really need. Just have a good fan that runs and blows right at you all night, and that's enough to keep you cool. Building the portable AC units and whatnot does work, but it takes up too much space. And then trying to find ice, even though we figured out a solution for getting free ice pretty much anytime you need it. It's still a pain to get ice to do, to use for that. So what I found is that just simply using the fan works best. And I have 2 fans, but I only really run one. I can run 2 if I need to, and I think it'll still make it through the night. I just have to recharge my system, my house battery system, the next day. Here we are in more of the automotive section for tire repairs. I do recommend getting something like this plug kit. This is a little bit more full system here for $588, but at a minimum, this is the one I would recommend, the $284. You use this to basically, you pull out with pliers, you pull out the nail or screw that has made a hole in your tire, and you plug it with this. And I highly recommend at least having one of these with you, just for emergency repairs. It could save you, and it's not that hard to do. If you watch one of my videos, you might see how it was done. And in my case, I had a big, huge hole, and ended up using like 4 or 5 of those things, which is not safe, but it was enough to get me to a used tire dealership. So I got a brand new, well, not a brand new, but a used tire to replace the system. These fix-a-flats, they may be useful for an emergency. I had used one of these slime ones before, and they did work temporarily. They're good for temporary fixes, but they do squirt this green slime everywhere. The other thing that I think is really useful, if you can get it, is a tire inflator. I had this kit, which came with the this small one. I think it was the one I got. It's like $20, $18.74, and it comes with some slime and a little compressor. This is the one I'd recommend getting if you don't have a lot of money. This compressor is not the best, but it'll work, and it can pretty much be used. The compressor can be used even long after you've used up the flat repair, the green slime. And of course, here you've got your standard automotive fluids and whatnot. But a really useful section will be probably over here. Try to point out certain things that I found to be useful, at least. Okay, these look like the power packs here. Actually, these look like battery chargers. They do have inverters here. At a minimum, I would recommend getting this 400-watt inverter. That's powerful enough to run the rice cooker, but that's about it. It'll run one rice cooker. This is roughly the size of what I have under my hood for an emergency backup system. It's $30, so if your budget's really tight, this is enough to run a rice cooker. That's a 300-watt, a small rice cooker. So you could set up a system similar to mine using this. I would recommend trying to get at least a 750-watt one if you can afford it. I'll look here at the rapid charger. It looks like they don't have any other inverters here. But they do normally sell a 750-watt inverter for $39 here, $40. And another one here for $70. So you can get a pretty decent inverter for roughly $40 to $70 here from Walmart. Don't know how long they'll last, but the one that I got from here was a Schumacher, and it's 750 watts, and it's still working fine. We're going on about 6 months since the van build, maybe 7 months since the build, but 5 months of actual usage. They also have these jump start battery units that may be useful for portable power, but I don't know if they can really be used for much more than that. There's a company that currently contacted me with one of these jump start units that I may be doing a review on. So if that comes up, be on the lookout for that video. These are house battery packs. I mean, they're not house battery packs. They're meant for jumping, and they have air compressors. They're like an all-in-one. And if you have like a small minivan or you're not planning on doing a full build, these can function as a house battery system. It's not going to have the best storage, like the most amp hours, but for ease of use and portability, I do recommend them. If you're not building a full house battery power system for your van, these things can be charged off 120 volts, and they can also be charged if you just plug the jumper cables, hook them up into your battery terminals and turn the unit on. It'll actually reverse charge. It'll charge from your alternator and battery to this unit, and that will charge very rapidly. Like on my system, it could charge it completely within 15 to 20 minutes or so. So it works very fast. You could also conceivably do like I did in Little Blue 2 and use one of these units as a house battery. Now, the system that I used was already 3 years old when I hooked it up, so the battery wasn't in the best of shape, and it ended up dying. So I don't know how well that system will actually work, but in a pinch, you could use it as an emergency house battery system. What's cool about these is that they have 120 volt output already, so they've got a small inverter. Usually, the inverter is probably about 200 watts or so. So it's not that powerful. You probably couldn't run the rice cooker on it, but you could run small appliances and your computer or laptop or whatever. It's also, this particular one has 4 USB ports built in, which would be great for charging your cell phone and other USB devices overnight. So, if you needed a quick house battery system, I do recommend something like this if you're not building a full-blown system using like AGM batteries and whatnot. You can run wires from your alternator and charge this unit back up, which is essentially what I did. So if you're interested in that, make sure you watch the Little Blue videos or the earlier vlogs that show all that. Right here by the power system section, I thought I'd go ahead and point out several things that may be useful. I didn't know that, I didn't even think about it, but see how these jumper cables have like gauges? Like this is a 10 gauge wire, and this is an 8 gauge wire, and that's a 6 gauge wire. Okay, the way you read this, the smaller the number, the thicker the wire. So this 8 gauge is thicker than a 10 gauge. The 6 gauge is thicker than the 8 gauge and the 12 and the 10 gauge. And the significance of that is the thicker the gauge, the better. Okay, so the smaller the gauge number here, the better the wire is when you're trying to do power systems and stuff for your van. And what I wanted to point out is, buying gauged wires is very expensive. But if you buy one of these jumpers, look at this. You can get a 12 gauge here for $7.87. I actually bought a 10 gauge cable from Sports Authority on sale for like $2.87. So I got the same one for like $2.87. But if you didn't have access to that, they sell these at Walmart. Like for a future van build, I might try the 8 gauge or the 6 gauge. I could get 16 gauge wire there for only $16. Let me see, is that $16? Yeah, 6 gauge for $16. What I would do is just get this and maybe cut it off on the tip, and then go ahead and bolt it down to the house battery system, and wire it like that. Make my own, or get a large what is that? Circuit breaker, or a fusible link or something to protect the system. But future build, I'll probably go at least try to do a 6 gauge if I can. If not, I'll do an 8 gauge, but I'm thinking 6 gauge because spending $15 on wiring like that, to me, is a pretty good investment. So just a little tip there since we're here and exploring Walmart. Now, they do have various battery systems here, mostly I think 6 volts. I didn't buy my battery from here. I ended up getting mine from Harbor City. I had been using a regular vehicle battery, like one of these lead acid batteries, but they're really not that safe. But in an emergency, you may have to use them. You just need to make sure that they're well ventilated, because when the battery is charging, it releases like really bad gases that can kill you. Okay, so you really should locate it where it can vent outside of the vehicle and not come into the vehicle. I now have an AGM battery that I bought from Like these are AGM batteries here, but I think these are 6 volts. I bought a AGM battery from Harbor Freight that I'm now using. It's not a heavy duty one. It's only got 35 amp hours, but for my purposes, it's more than adequate. Also, some of you were wondering about battery boxes. They sell these battery boxes here at Walmart here. You can see these are only $8 for these small battery boxes. So worth getting if you don't have a battery box. And that, we'll go ahead and explore some more. But you can see there's a lot of really cool stuff you can pick up from Walmart. So here are some like 12 volt plugs and whatnot, outlets that you can hook up and install in your vehicle. So these can become very important, you know, if you're living in your vehicle, because you can put, like if you put this one mounted somewhere and wire it, you can have 12 volt devices as well as constant access to USB. And this one's like $10, and then they have another one for $6 here that just has two 12 volt ones. I tend to think that these may be better here than getting that, because usually USB ports are always on. So even when you're not using the system, the fact that it has USB output may be drawing power from your battery. Whereas this one here, you would plug in a phone adapter or whatever that has the USB connection. So when you don't need it, you can unplug it, and then you're not draining down your 12 volt house battery. Okay, so it may be a good idea to just get this, and then instead of going with this kind, even though this is more convenient, but when you're using this, you are probably going to drain the system a little bit. A slow trickle drain here from the USB connection. If you're charging your system every day through solar or from driving, it may not be an issue. Purchases that I think that are important include getting various fuses, depending on your vehicle, the type that your vehicle uses. Mine, I think, uses these small ones. But then on my cooking system, my house wiring system, I ended up using these larger ones. So they're worth getting here. I bought some cheap ones from the flea market, which I don't know if I truly trust, although currently my vehicle had a blown fuse, and I did use the cheap ones, these little ones from the flea market. It seems to be working fine so far. This is a connection that I use to connect my house system up. But you see this wiring here, it's only it's a 12 gauge wire, which is terrible. So I had made one that was 10 gauge, which is better, that I need to, you know, fix and make it better and probably replace the system later. Because when you use a smaller gauge wire and the rest of the wiring is like a 8 gauge or a 10 gauge or a 6 gauge, when it hits this 12 gauge, it creates a lot of heat, and then it ends up melting this whole unit, which is bad. So you really want to keep the gauging of the wire consistent, because otherwise when it drops down to a smaller wire, the current going through there will heat up that wire and melt it. And I had that issue with switches as well. I ended up going with a house switch, which so far seems to be working fine. But prior to that, I had bought like the switches from this section. I'm trying to see if they had the switches here. Yeah, like see these automotive switches here. This thing says it's rated at 35 amps. 35 amps is 12 volts. I think I had one of these, and I think it melted or broke or whatever. So they tend to melt down here on the plastic part. So I went through like 2 different switches. I think I had one similar to this, but it was like all metal. And basically this one says it's 20 amps. They melted. So I don't recommend using these switches. Matter of fact, if you can afford it, you should get a battery isolator, which I may upgrade to later. But if you're really on a budget, you can get away with, at least I did, with using a house switch, which the house switch and the faceplate was less than a $2 or $2.50. And I bought that. You can buy it from Walmart, but I bought it from Home Depot. And I ended up making that switch system using a house 120 volt switch, as well as the faceplate. And so far that's been working out really well. And if I had started out with that, I probably wouldn't have had all the hassle I had with melting switches. So if you're just building from scratch, I recommend that if your budget is tight. Otherwise, if you can afford it, get a battery isolator so it's automated and you don't have to deal with switching and whatnot. Don't buy these wires. Like this is 12 gauge wire, 16, these are small. I think you're better off, if you're going to do that, buying one of these. Get the battery jumper and then just cut off the clamp and just use the wire. Probably save yourself a lot of money and a lot of headaches down the road.